Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the gossip that fed the village. Forget everything Hollywood told you about medieval life. There were no polished knights with Colgate smiles, no damsels twirling in clean petticoats, and definitely no herbal tea for emotional resilience. Gossip, not God, not gold, ran this village. So before you get too comfortable, hit that like button if you enjoy slow-burning historical tea, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. London? Toronto? Hiding under your covers in suburban Minnesota? All right, dim the lights. Maybe grab a warm drink. Pull that blanket a little tighter, because we're going back to a time when survival depended less on swords and more on secrets. Ready? Let's begin. Imagine you wake up to the scent of smoke, yeast, and manure. Not the glamorous medieval fantasy, huh? You're lying on a straw-stuffed mattress, covered in a wool blanket that smells faintly of sheep. The thatch roof above you occasionally drops bits of hay on your face. A hen is clucking beneath the bed. And outside, the village roosters have apparently signed a 5 a.m. choir contract. The air is cool, with a hint of last night's hearth smoke still lingering. You sit up, rubbing your eyes, and hear it. Just outside your window, the low hum of two voices. Women, talking, whispering, plotting? No, not plotting, sharing. An update? Perhaps. A warning. They pause, then burst into laughter. The sun is just beginning to slide above the thatch rooftop, and the village is waking up. Welcome to Alderbridge. Population: a few dozen souls, half a dozen cows, and more secrets than spoons. And welcome to its lifeblood, gossip. Now meet Ida. She's mid-50s, though she'd scowl if you said so out loud. Sharp eyes, even sharper tongue. Widowed 10 years. Childless by fate, but not for lack of trying. She lives alone in a tidy cottage by the well, with a crooked chimney and a garden of herbs that even the apothecary respects. Ida bakes in the morning, listens in the afternoon, and by twilight she stirs the social stew like a seasoned kitchen witch. She doesn't mean to be the village's newsletter. It just happened. She's not malicious. She doesn't lie. She simply remembers everything. Who borrowed flour? Who cried outside the chapel? Who didn't return the priest's cup? If someone's husband comes home drunk, Ida knows. If the butcher's daughter is sneaking off with the miller's apprentice, Ida knew 3 moons ago. And she probably brought them a blanket. Think of her as the human Facebook of 1324. No internet, no printing press. But trust me, nothing went unseen. You don't tell Ida something. You release it into the ecosystem. Every Thursday evening, the Spindle Circle gathers. It's not an official guild or anything fancy like that. It's 5 women, a fire, some wool, and stories with a twist of salt. They sit on low stools in Ida's front room, the spinning wheels clicking like tiny gossip clocks. Wool stretches across knees, embers glow, and voices float into the rafters. Did you see Father Harold talking to that merchant's wife? Was it talking or was it blessing her again? Cue laughter. Someone snorts. Even the dog sighs in judgment. This is where reputations are. born, rise, fall, and get remade. But here's the thing. They don't do it to be cruel. They do it because in a world without mail, newsprint, or reliable messengers, someone has to keep track. Who was sick last week? Who left town? Who got married and to whom? And was it a love match or a land deal? The spindle circle knows. And if you keep listening, so will you. Let's add a little intrigue, shall we? One morning, a stranger walks into the village. Tall, quiet, hood pulled low, boots not muddy enough for local roads. He walks with the kind of confidence that makes people nervous. He says he's from York. Ida raises one brow. York men flinch when chickens peck at their boots. This one didn't even blink. By midday, theories are sprouting faster than nettles. He's a runaway monk. No, he's a noble in hiding. Actually, he's just ugly and shy. Even the blacksmith, who hasn't spoken since Easter, mutters something about spies. Ida says nothing. She simply invites the man to supper and watches. One spring morning, trouble brews. Someone says the blacksmith's boy has the pox, not confirmed, but said loudly enough near the well to be heard by 3 different women from 3 different corners. By noon, the boy's mother is crying. Bread is being left on the doorstep instead of handed over. People cross the road to avoid him. He doesn't have the pox. He has heat rash from carrying too much wood. Ida? She fixes it. Not with apologies, with a better story. She visits homes, not with gossip, but clarity. Flour burn, she says, shaking her head. Child's working too hard. And just like that, fear becomes sympathy. Neighbours bring him salve. Someone leaves a pie. The circle resets. Gossip can hurt, but it can also heal, if you know how to wield it. Gossip today feels cheap, petty. Reality TV for people without cable. But back then, it was the glue, the warning system, the whisper network that kept you fed, married, warned, and sometimes forgiven. You didn't just survive winter because of firewood. You survived because you knew who had extra turnips. Because Ida whispered that old Agnes was selling her boots. Because someone saw the steward drinking too much and thought maybe the taxes would be late this year. Gossip wasn't a hobby. It was a strategy. One evening, as the spindle circle spun and muttered, a girl sat quietly by the hearth, 10 years old, brown curls, big eyes. She listened more than she spoke. Ida handed her a spindle. Want to learn? The girl nodded. They spun together. Later, Ida leaned in and whispered, "Don't tell tales to hurt, only to help people remember." And that girl, years later, she would take Ida's place, not as a gossip, as a historian, a memory keeper, because sometimes the past isn't recorded in books. It's carried on breath and thread. So the next time someone whispers something juicy in your ear, think of Ida. Think of the spindles and the fire and the wool dragging across the floor. Gossip didn't build empires, but it kept villages alive. It was messy, imperfect, sometimes wrong, but it was human. And in a world without Twitter, Google, or GPS, that was enough. If you enjoyed this quiet little corner of medieval life, comment below. What would you have gossiped about if you lived in a village like this. Remember, it's best to keep your ears open and your tongue clever. Now, if you are still here, the village is quiet now. The spindle circle has gone home. The fire dies low in Ida's hearth. But not far from her cottage, another woman is waking. She doesn't deal in whispers. She deals in flour. Her world is quieter, warmer, kneaded by hand and measured not in minutes, but in rise and rest. Because while gossip kept the village informed, bread kept it alive. Stay with me. Pull the blanket up. The next story is already beginning, not with a secret, but with a starter. Up next, I'll share the story of the woman who needed time. You see, before alarm clocks, before Google Calendar, before you could ask Alexa what day it was, there was bread, and bread kept time. So before you get too comfortable, hit that like button if you've ever burned toast, and let me know in the comments what your comfort bread is. Brioche? Rye? That one loaf you bought during your sourdough phase and never finished? Pull that blanket tighter and inhale deeply, because we're heading back to a world where bread was currency, communion, and comfort. And one woman's hands held it all together. Imagine you wake to the sound of grinding, not traffic, not a phone buzzing. Stone against stone. The quern. A soft, rhythmic crunch as the grain becomes flour. You rub your eyes. You're in a medieval village again. But this time, the gossip is still asleep. This time, we begin in the bakery. The walls are warm. The air is dry and smells like earth, yeast, and something ancient. There is no oven timer, no rolling pin from Williams-Sonoma, just hands, and those hands belong to Agnes. She is not tall. Her back curves like a question mark. Her apron is older than your great-aunt, and she is already on her second batch of dough. Welcome to Agnes's world. She doesn't tell time by sun or moon. She tells time by rise, rest, and crust. This is Agnes of Westley, widow, no children, all muscle. She's kneaded more loaves than your Instagram feed has selfies. Born to a miller, married to a cooper, left with a cottage and a wood-fired oven. She could have remarried, but bread needed her, and Agnes knew how to listen. She speaks little, but her fingers are eloquent. Pressing, folding, shaping, she can tell the day's weather by the dough's mood. Too sticky? Rain's coming. Too tight? Frost. She remembers years not by kings, but by loaves. The rye year. Bad harvest. The burned batch year? Her husband died. The seeded summer. When the bees returned. Agnes doesn't keep a journal. She keeps a recipe book in her bones. Here's a little-known fact. Not every cottage had an oven. Why? Because ovens were expensive, finicky, and harder to manage than a YouTube comment section. So most villages had a communal oven. And guess who was its guardian angel? Agnes. She wakes before everyone, lights the fire, tests the stone, checks the ash. Then, one by one, villagers arrive with their dough, covered in cloth, marked with family symbols. She bakes them all, rich, poor, petty, sweet. Every family's loaf goes in, and while they bake, She listens, not with ears, with dough. She says, holding the potter's wife's loaf. You're angry. How can you tell? Too much salt. Bread doesn't lie. Agnes reads people in their crumb. Let's walk through her day, shall we? At 5 a.m. quern stones turn. Fire starts. 6 a.m. First mix. Flour, water, pinch of salt, yesterday's starter. The dough sighs as she kneads. 7 a.m. She stretches the dough, lets it rest. She drinks water, pulls a shawl over her shoulders, watches the chimney smoke. 9 a.m. First rise. The dough has doubled. It's ready to be shaped. 10:30 a.m. The oven is ready. The door creaks. Heat spills out like a dragon's sigh. 11 a.m. Loaves go in, one by one. She doesn't need a timer. She listens for the pop, smells for the browning. 1 p.m. The village returns. Their bread waits for them, lined in rows like soldiers. Warm, honest. And so goes the day. Agnes never rushes. You can't rush fermentation, or grief, or love. One autumn, the steward of the manor stops by. The Baron is having guests. Important ones. The kind with teeth that have never met oats. He wants something refined. The steward says, honeyed, maybe with almond. Agnes blinks. Almond? In Wesley? Still, she bows and sets to work. She walks to the woods, finds wild flowers, harvests late honey. She trades with the travelling monk for a handful of crushed nuts. She tests the dough once, twice, burns her hand, sings to the yeast, and 3 days later, she brings the loaf, golden, glazed, a crust like amber. It sings when sliced. The steward is speechless. The Baron asks for more. Agnes shrugs. Bread is bread, but inside she smiles. Just a little. Agnes remembers people by bread. Her mother's sour rye, her husband's barley rolls, the child she lost before birth, marked by a bread that never rose. Bread absorbs joy, fear, hope. Once, she made a loaf for a boy going to war. She kneaded courage into it. Once, she baked a peace offering for 2 feuding sisters. It worked. They argued less, then shared a recipe. She made funeral loaves, wedding loaves, new mother loaves. Each time, a prayer went in, not spoken, just pressed between palm and flour. She doesn't say she loves you, she bakes it. Years pass. Agnes slows down. Her fingers ache. The oven door feels heavier. But one day, a girl shows up. Thin, curious, slightly afraid of the fire. Want to learn? Agnes asks. The girl nods. Agnes hands her the dough bowl. It's old, cracked, but strong. Together, they knead. The girl learns to listen, to smell, to wait. Agnes teaches her that bread is not about perfection, it's about presence. And when the girl bakes her first loaf, she cries, just a little, because she understands. Time is not kept in clocks. It's kept in warm hands, shared loaves, and the silence before the crust cracks. So next time you slice a piece of bread, think of Agnes. Think of flour on your fingers. the softness of dough under palm, the way time slows when you wait for something to rise. Agnes didn't write history books. She wrote memories into bread. And long after she was gone, her bowl stayed behind, passed from hand to hand, like time. If this story warmed your heart and your appetite, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what would your signature loaf say about you? My friend, now that the last loaf has cooled, Agnes has wiped her hands on her apron and the fire in the oven has turned to ash. But across the village, another fire is just beginning. This one crackles in a hearth, surrounded by laughter, spilled drink, and stories too fragile for daylight. Because if bread kept the body fed, ale kept the soul talking. So don't move, don't stir the silence just yet. Let the crumbs settle and the candles burn low. Up next, I'll share the story of the ale that heard every secret. This is a story that goes down smooth and ends with a whisper. Forget kings and knights and quests. If you want the truth of the medieval world, don't go to the castle. Go to the corner of the tavern, behind the barrels, where the air smells of spilled beer and burnt onion soup. So comment below if you've ever trusted a stranger with too much after your second drink, and let me know what your favourite drink is. Mead, stout, tea, or good old-fashioned water. Pull the blanket up and maybe, just maybe, raise a quiet toast. Because this is the story of ale and the secrets it kept. Imagine you wake to the sound of bubbling, not from soup, not from the rain in the eaves, but from the great copper vat in the centre of the brewhouse. It smells like sweat, steam, and something yeasty. You're lying on a rough straw mattress, tucked into the corner of the brewmaster's quarters. Your blanket is a coarse wool, and it smells faintly of hops. You've slept here every night for a year, ever since Tom took you in. Tom says, if you want to understand the village, don't listen to the priest, listen to the people after their third pint. And so you do. Your apprenticeship didn't begin with barley. It began with listening. Tom the brewer is a local legend. Not the kind that slays dragons. The kind that can silence a room with a single glance and pour 6 pints without spilling a drop. He's built like a barrel and twice as loud. His laugh has scared off hawks. His hands are calloused. His boots are soaked in old ale. And he always smells faintly of rosemary and roasted malt. Tom doesn't just brew, he mediates. He knows when the baker's wife is mad at the miller, even before they do. He notices when someone drinks faster than usual, or when they nurse a pint for too long. Every week, someone confesses something to Tom they never meant to say out loud. He never repeats it. But he always remembers, and now he's teaching you to do the same. The Hearthstone Tavern sits on the edge of the village square. It's not fancy. The floor is uneven, the ceiling low. Smoke clings to the rafters like stubborn ghosts. But it is always full. The regulars trickle in like clockwork. First, the cooper, who claims he doesn't drink but always samples. Then the shepherd with one good boot. Then the midwife, who everyone calls Mother Gwen, even though she's only 37. And then the stories begin. Every stool, every table, every mug has a tale. A soldier who lost an ear in battle and tells a different version of it each time. A girl who claims her cow gives more milk when she sings to it. A carpenter who hasn't spoken to his brother in 12 years and no one remembers why. They all drink Tom's ale, and in its warm buzz, truth slips through their lips like honey. Making ale is not glamorous. It's messy, hot, and sticky. You start by hauling water from the well. Not just any water, the one behind the herb garden, where the roots purify the taste. Then, the barley, crushed, soaked, boiled. You stir until your arms ache. You smell like porridge gone sour. Then the magic, the yeast. Tom calls it the invisible choir. They sing their own song, he says. You just have to wait until they're done. Sometimes you use hops, sometimes herbs, nettle, yarrow, even sage. Every batch tells a different story. Tom says fermentation is like confession. You put in something raw, and with time and care, it becomes something people can live with. One foggy morning, Tom notices a barrel is gone. Not just any barrel, the midsummer batch. His pride, he storms through the tavern like thunder. "Who took it?" he growls. No one answers. You search everywhere. The cellar, the stables, even behind the old chapel. Whispers fill the village. The blacksmith needed it for a feast. The priest took it for the abbey. Maybe it rolled off on its own. But you notice something strange. Muddy footprints. Small, heading toward the woodshed. You follow. There, half hidden under hay, is the barrel. And beside it, the pig thief, curled up, crying. "I just wanted something warm," he mutters. "Something that didn't make me feel so gone." You poured 2 mugs. You sit beside him, and you don't tell Tom. In the back corner of the hearthstone is a table. Round, burned, nicked. It has survived 6 brawls, 3 marriages, and at least 1 goat-related incident. People don't sit there to eat. They sit there to confess. A girl once whispered that she stole from her father's purse. A man admitted he couldn't read but pretended for years. One woman said she didn't love her husband. Never had. The table doesn't judge. It just listens. Tom says, "Wood remembers," and he leaves a candle there. Always, so the stories don't get lost in the dark. The village has one rule during the harvest festival. Everyone drinks the festival brew. Tom makes it with honey, nutmeg, cloves, and something he never reveals. By dusk, the square glows with lanterns. Children run wild. Elders dance. And secrets loosen like corks. One year, 2 enemies toast. Another year, a girl proposes to her sweetheart. Everyone smiles a little wider. You watch from the steps, mug in hand, eyes on the stars. You think, maybe the ale doesn't just hear secrets. Maybe it helps people speak them. Years pass. Tom grows slower. He leans more, jokes less. But when he laughs, it still rumbles the glasses. One winter night, he hands you the old stirring stick. "Yours now," he says. "You brew, you spill, you burn your sleeve. But the ale, it sings." The village still comes, still drinks, still whispers. And you listen, because Tom taught you brewing was never just about barley. It was about paying attention, So next time you lift a glass, think of Tom. Think of the table in the corner, the thief in the woodshed, the candle that always stays lit. Alley didn't change the world, but it helped people live in it. If this story warmed your soul, hit that like button. Comment below, what secret would your favorite drink overhear? So now you know, in a village you've never seen, down roads you'll never walk, lived people whose names were never written in history books, but they mattered. The gossip that warned, the bread that comforted, the ale that listened. Their lives weren't loud, but they were full of rhythm, of ritual, of each other. And maybe, just maybe, so is yours. Thank you for spending this time with me. If these stories touch something in you, some memory, some feeling, some part of you that needed soft company, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more candlelit corners of forgotten lives. Until next time, gossip gently, knead patiently, and listen closely. The village remembers you. Good night.